Hello, I'm Greg Preston and a member of the PFA executive, and really pleased to be presenting this afternoon's discussion dealing with topical issues for members. Today we're speaking to, and very privileged to be speaking to Sean McMahon, lead partner of McMahon Clarke's funds management team, talking about some topical issues in the management sector at the moment, those being the new product design and distribution obligations, as well as the AFCA, which is a new acronym to me, and Sean's going to be explaining that to us very soon. So over to Sean. Sean, what do fund managers need to know about DDO, and what is it meant to achieve?
Thanks, Greg. Thanks for having me on. Look, I guess the first thing is DDO doesn't start until 5 October 2021, which seems a long time away, but until now, ASIC has been very focused on disclosure, and what the DDO really says to us is ASIC has taken the view that having a fully informed consumer doesn't necessarily produce great consumer outcomes. So what they're doing with DDO is really shifting the focus on product issuers and product distributors to a focus of making sure that the right clients finish up with the correct products.
So, look, DDO, just thinking about October 21 seems a long way away. Why do fund managers need to be thinking about it actively at the moment?
You're right, it is a long way off. But as with many things within ASIC's purview, for fund managers, it is a case of substance over form in some respects. It changes the way that a manager designs their product. And that means from the ground up, they've got to change their compliance systems, and that sort of thing really has to start early if you're going to get on top of this from day one.
So you've mentioned there's a lot of work to be done, preparatory work by the sounds of things. Are you able to share any tips for fund managers on what they need to be doing now to get ready for 2021?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, you need to work out what class of investor your product is designed to serve. And for a lot of property fund managers, that won't be a difficult thing because a basic property fund is not a complex investment product when you compare them to the financial product universe, but it's something that you're going to have to do is work out the appropriate class of investor. You're going to have to work out your market determination statement, which is something that's going to be required. Those first two things are really quite simple. The third part of it, which is probably where there's more work involved, is making sure that your distribution networks, who also will have obligations under the DDO rules, have their systems in place. So there's a reporting process that's going to have to happen between product issuers and product distributors. And if I'm an issuer, I need to make sure that my distribution network is on top of the DDO process as well, so that I'm comfortable that my product is being distributed correctly, because if it's not, I might be held responsible for that.
Okay, so look, strong compliance seems paramount, and not just at a point in time, but also throughout the life of a fund itself. But there's more to it than that, than the DDO itself, isn't there?
Well, there is, and what we believe is that the changes through DDO should be looked at through a broader lens. And in the last couple of years, we've seen AFCA introduced, the Australian Financial Complaints Authority introduced. Now, AFCA's got a much broader purview than many people acknowledge. And what we've seen in the last couple of years is there's certainly been a surge in complaints to AFCA. And those managers that don't have strong compliance systems, particularly in the area of product development, and in making sure that these DDO obligations are put in place properly, are going to find themselves potentially under some more scrutiny.
Okay, yes, I found it interesting that AFCA's quite broad in its appeal under its mandate, isn't it?
It really is, and it's not bound to comply with the law. AFCA, it's a contractual relationship between its members and AFCA, and what the rules of membership say is that AFCA has to have regard to the law. It doesn't have to follow the law. It has to have regard to the law. So its jurisdiction and its powers are really quite broad. And it does, importantly, AFCA does not deal with complaints about investment performance. So I can't complain to AFCA if a product was sold to me properly, but it just performed poorly. But what I can do if I'm an investor is that I can complain to AFCA if the product was either not described properly to me, or I was misled or deceived somehow, or in the context of DDO, which is what we were just talking about, Greg, is if the product should not have been sold to me in the first place because it wasn't an appropriate product for me. And that's where we see the real connection between these DDO obligations and the jurisdiction of AFCA.
So it sounds like there's a link. Also, just another interesting one, Sean, whether the pool of investor clients is retail or sophisticated, does it just apply to retail or is it broader than that?
No, it doesn't. It applies to anyone who's a member of AFCA.
Right.
So if you give advice to retail clients, you must be a member of AFCA. And once you're a member of AFCA, if you then give advice to a wholesale client, AFCA still has jurisdiction. So your wholesale clients still have a right to make a complaint to AFCA if they're advised by someone who is a member. The only cap on that is if they invest over $1 million. The jurisdictional limit of AFCA is $1 million. So that's the only exception, but they can be wholesale. That's a misnomer.
So it certainly sounds like fund managers need to be well over this. Are there any tips to avoiding running foul of AFCA? You can share with us, Sean.
Well, obviously you have good compliance systems and governance systems in place, but there's a couple of, I guess, basic things you can do. If you are in the fortunate position where you have multiple licenses, then just to the point that I just made, if you can limit giving advice to your retail clients under one license, and if you've got wholesale clients, you provide them advice under a wholesale only license, then those wholesale clients will be outside of AFCA because the licensee, which provided the service to them, won't be a member. So that's one thing you can do. Secondly, if you're in the habit of issuing making authorised representatives, then you need to absolutely make sure that you keep the register with ASIC constantly updated. So you don't want an authorised representative out there acting under your authority if you've actually terminated the authority. As soon as you terminate it, you notify ASIC. If you are appointing an authorised rep, make sure your documentation is thorough. There's proper indemnities and protections for the licensee because you're responsible for whatever those authorised reps do. And as we just said, with the introduction of DDO, having really good systems in place about the way your product is designed and importantly the way it's distributed will provide you some additional protection.
Thanks very much for that, Sean. It's been really useful catching up on where DDOs are at, and also was learning about this new acronym AFCA. It was new to me before we did this interview today. But thanks for your time today, Sean. It's been great. Thanks for everyone joining us today to share these valuable insights on the regulatory environment, particularly around distribution obligations in AFCA, and we'll be in touch shortly with the next PFA interview. Thank you very much.